thank you again for joining me on the Southern Report and giving me the privilege of your company. I say this fairly regularly, which is I'm about to bring on a guest, and I always say this is going to be an incredible conversation, and it is going to be a credible conversation. What is amazing about life is that when you reflect in your past, that you suddenly realize that when you meet someone in the future, as we're about to do, that there has been a little crossing and that there is a connection. And I always think that that is a very profound thing and something to very much reflect on. So I'm going to bring on my next guest, which is Rabbi Bernhard Rosenberg, and we are going to have an incredible conversation across the pond, all the thousands of miles away. Sir, thank you so much for joining me, and it's lovely to see you in person, because the last time we spoke for 2 hours, it was via audio. So a big shout out for, I think, family who have managed to give you support technologically. So I'm very grateful for that, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to call you Bernhard, if you don't mind.
Call me Ben.
Okay. Yeah. Bernhard, there are so many things that I know that we touched on last time, and there are so many things I want to talk about, and we're going to have to go over things. But I just wonder, if you don't mind, if it's okay with you, if you just tell us who you are, where you are, what you've been doing, and then I'd like to refer back to your incredible roots and an amazing story, if that's okay.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show. We just spoke a few moments ago, and I grew up in a Holocaust home. Two parents who were in Auschwitz and Skazysko, only child. And I got married at the age of 33. They were concerned that it was taking me too long. Well, I found the perfect mate and one child. I now have 15 grandchildren, one that was born just a few days ago. So I'd like to share that with the audience.
Thank you. Amen. Brilliant. Brilliant.
So I have basically dedicated my life to having the memory of the Holocaust survive and to fight anti-Semitism. We are living in an age of terrible, terrible anti-Semitism. And if anyone does not realize this, they certainly have their head in the sand. I am disappointed at the amount of rabbis that are fighting back. I am disappointed at the Jewish establishment that's not fighting back enough. And I warn you, and I warn you, and I've warned everyone since my first book, another Holocaust is possible. It's possible because it's already happened, and therefore it can happen again. So people say to me, we have the state of Israel, and we didn't have the state of Israel before. Well, thank God we have the state of Israel. I have a son and 3 grandchildren now in Israel, and his wife, and I have other relatives there. But I can tell you 2 nuclear bombs into Israel, and it's all over. It's not all over only for Israel, it's all over for us. The only thing keeping us alive, I think, is the fact that we do have the state of Israel. But God forbid, if it's ever destroyed, we're going to be destroyed. People don't want to hear this, but I'm telling you, I'm not a prophet, but I can almost promise you another Holocaust will happen.
I think, Bernhard, at this time, particularly after the 7th of October 2023, and your warnings, because there's sadly many events in the history of Israel and other anti-Semitic attacks that had happened before then. You've been warning, and then with the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust on the 7th of October 2023. we meet at a very, very salutary time. And what you've just said is profound, because I believe in reading and knowing a little bit about you and what you've been doing, that this has been a constant rhyme in what you've been talking about. And when people say, they are just unbelievably, in my opinion, disgusting enough to turn around and deny events, we're seeing that hatred all over again, repeating itself. Bernhard, I had the privilege it was a privilege, but also I think it was one of the most horrific experiences of my life, where in 1986 I walked around Auschwitz in Poland, which had a profound effect on me. You can't deny that. And then you look at history. It's all very well people reading history books and thinking, that's far away, but it's not. So Bernhard, as you said, your parents were both in a concentration camp, and then they survived. They came together, and you in 1948, wasn't it? You weren't in America, was it? At that time, they then came to America.
I was born in a DP camp, a displaced persons camp, in Regensburg, Germany. My parents were from Poland, Wojciech and Slomniki, and they ended up in the DP camp in Regensburg, and that's where I was born. We came to the United States when I was about 2, and that's when I started learning, even at a young age, about anti-Semitism. We didn't have any money. My father came with $13 in his pocket. But we had to live somewhere, so we rented a place. And I remember as a child, maybe I was 3, playing with firecrackers. I didn't even speak English yet. And I remember the landlord saying to my parents, "You Jew, get out." And the next day we got out, and we had to find a place to live. And this just kept going on in my life, and I kept seeing more and more. What's the reason for anti-Semitism? Nobody knows. They just hate you. If they didn't hate us, they'd hate the Mexicans. If they didn't hate the Mexicans, they'd hate the Spanish. You got to hate somebody, and the Jews are the number one people now to hate. It's interesting. People say, the deniers, that the Holocaust never happened. Well, I guess my grandparents and aunts, uncles, cousins, they must have gone to Florida, because I can't find them anywhere. Same thing is going on with Hamas now. They're saying that Hamas is being starved. I don't, in my heart, feel that any child should be starved, and I don't feel that anyone should be starved. But whatever is happening there, Hamas is, with their publicity, is making sure that the world hates the Jews. And around the world now, people are hating the Jews because of the war that's going on now between Hamas and between Israel. They hated the Jews before, but now it's becoming even more blatant. And we're not fighting hard enough back.
Where were you, Bernhard, on October the 6th and then on October the 7th, 2023? Do you remember where you were?
I was home. But I can tell you something interesting. On the internet, they're talking about the Sparrow restaurant in Jerusalem, where they serve pizza, and talking about miracles. My wife and I had just visited the Holocaust Museum, and I told the driver to drop us off there. I wanted some pizza. But at the last minute, 1 second before 1 o'clock, it was in the summer of 2001. At the last minute, I said to my wife, tell the driver to go down 1 more block. He went down 1 more block, and we had cream cheese and a bagel. I was on a diet, by the way. And all of a sudden, an explosion. We heard the explosion. I went running out. I helped pick up body parts. That's a mitzvah. It's a good deed. people were flown all over the place and dying, and it was terrible. But what was interesting is by the time I got there, which was only less than a minute, CNN was already there. Did CNN know something that the rest of us didn't know? Obviously, they were told. And it just continues, one death after another death. And by the way, very soon after, it was 9/11. So not only did we experience the 2001 explosion, my wife is on the train going into New York and actually saw the smoke coming out of the two buildings.
Wow. I mean that the second, in regard to what happened with the Twin Towers and you being there in New York, that's a huge discussion in itself. But going back to those events in 2001, asking what may seem a stupid question, how do you cope with those kind of incidences? What's going on in your mind? Do you just immediately go into a role of I need to help in this situation, then think about it afterwards?
Well, I right away in my mind said I need to help, and I did. But the Israeli people are the strongest people on earth. They are unbelievable. So after the explosion, my wife and I passed by the restaurant again in the evening, and people were just mulling around like nothing had happened, because unfortunately they're used to this, and they're unbelievably strong.
When the Intifada was going on, when they were planting bombs on buses, and when you hear of stories of parents in Israel who were then putting their children on a bus taking child to school, college, and when people have got two children and they're going, I'm going to put one of my children on this bus, and then I'm going to put one of my children on another bus. And I'd recently had that conversation in Israel in May. That's quite shocking. You then come face to face with the reality of this.
When the Intifada started, my daughter Ilana was going to school in Israel, and they were firing near the car that she was in. We brought her back home. So we experienced that, and she experienced that. But something new happened in between. I've always been looking for relatives, constantly looking. Unfortunately, I was afraid to ask my parents too many questions because they would always cry. And I didn't know anything about their parents or anything about their relatives. So all my life, I've been searching and searching. During the COVID, my daughter Ilana had time to go on the internet and go on Heritage and other places. She discovered that I have a first cousin in Israel that we didn't know about on my mother's side. So I went on a plane. I have back problems, but my wife and I went on a plane. We had to meet them. We had to see them because I didn't know how long he was going to live. 35 people met us at the house.
Wow.
So that was emotionally enough. But one of the people that I remember so well sitting right in front of me was a young lady who married a Israeli who was a police officer. That police officer was murdered just recently, and that has shaken me up to no end. It's one thing to know about the Shoah and know you don't have any grandparents and you know that you don't have aunts and uncles. It's another thing to actually be alive when one of your relatives is murdered.
I'm sorry, because as you're talking about historic trauma, and then trauma that is happening now because of anti-Semitism and because of people's hate. And
this is what I'm finding. I just got a note from the family in Israel that she just had a boy.
Right.
Miracles. So many of the young ladies that are now widows are remarrying. There's that spirit of we got to continue, and we've got to overcome the mourning, and we have to build a state of Israel. And that is happening right now.
Bernhard, you made a reference in regard to the propaganda, and in your professional life, when you're working in universities lecturing, how much of this hatred, this anti-Semitism, have you actually personally had to deal with?
Well, I taught at Rutgers University for 20 years, and on the internet, the Rutgers internet, there was a statement about me saying that I'm a Zionistic pig. I gave the student a B+, and I should go to hell, and all of Jews should be murdered. I brought that to the attention of the Rutgers police. They couldn't find that person. Interesting. I can tell you if I was a black person or if I was a Muslim, they would have found them. Rutgers is one of the places which the president is named as being anti-Semitic. And I have tried to change that, and we're working on it. All these universities, Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, this is all happening because of the university professors that are being paid off by various Arab countries that are anti-Semitic. And all these young people are learning from them to hate Israel. Now, it's also interesting. I spent 9 years on the New Jersey State Holocaust Commission. I was the assistant editor of the curriculum for the state. And it seems like all that work that we did didn't do too much good, since the same students that ended up in Princeton and in Harvard and in Columbia and in Rutgers turned anti-Semitic.
What is the University of Rutgers? Is that an abbreviation? What's its official name?
University of Rutgers.
Right.
Rutgers University.
Right. Because as you are in our earlier conversation a number of weeks ago, when you and I were talking about the history, Harvard, Columbia, the history of the anti-Semitism in the 30s, and allowing Nazis PR to come and actually talk of those. And people, when you talk about that, people don't believe you, do they? They just think, no, this hasn't gone on.
Listen, nothing has changed. In the America during World War II, 50% rate of anti-Semitism. It was not overt. I mean, people were not smashing Jews, hopefully, in the head and having blood come out in Borough Park and Williamsburg and other places like they're doing now. But it was being said 50% were anti-Semitic then. Has it changed much? Doesn't seem to be.
No. And there was also this campaign to then reduce the amount of Jewish students that were allowed into those universities, and the celebration of bringing that from that attendance from 50% down to 23%. You can't make it up, can you?
Well, most of my degrees and my ordination is from Yeshiva University. Yeshiva University created the first Jewish medical school because Jews could not get into other medical schools. Yeshiva University, I'm so proud to be a member of that university, has a law school, has a school of social work, is starting a dental school. That's today. And I'm telling people, don't go to Columbia, don't go to Princeton, don't go to Harvard where they hate you. Go to Yeshiva University or Touro University where they love you. And in fact, both universities, I believe, are giving major scholarships for Jewish students to attend there.
And well, it's not surprising that they're doing that. That's a positive thing, but it's extremely sad. You understand what I mean, that they're having to do that. But it's when you then see the heads of university go and sit before Congress, and they're turning around and say, well, you have to look at the anti-Semitism, the comments made, river to the sea, you have to look at it in context. Well, I can't believe it. What context are they talking about?
Well, here we got a few things going on. First, you have Soros. that anti-Semitic capo. He's pouring in money like there's no tomorrow into the Democratic Party. After Soros, we've got all these wonderful Democratic senators and congressmen that are supporting the gentleman who's anti-Semitic that's running for mayor of New York. Now, how in the world is that possible for people of our own faith and our own belief doing that? Well, the answer is, who knows? To me, it's disgusting. I attack them. Most rabbis are silent. Why are they silent? I'm going to tell you why they're silent. They're afraid of their jobs. Yeah, they're afraid if they say the wrong thing in the wrong congregation, which may be split between Republicans and Democrats, that they will lose their job. Now, I'm known as a rabbi for Trump because I started that before he even he announced his candidacy. Actually, it was when he was going down the escalator. I met with Trump, and people don't like me because I'm rabbi for Trump. Well, that's fine. I'm doing what I think should be done.
You mentioned that. You've just mentioned that again, and I'm going to explore this. And maybe you've even just answered it by saying, why aren't there more rabbis like yourself speaking out? And as you have said, you have spoken out, and people have asked you. I think they've asked you not to, or say, could you just tone this down? It's a bit like saying, could you just fit in, please, and then get it, and then just fade into the background. But
well, the other reason. They're afraid of what might happen to their families. In two of my synagogues, I've had swastikas, dead animals on my homes, swastikas on my homes. My wife and I were attacked going to the synagogue and coming back from the synagogue. So most rabbis don't want that type of life. Thank God my wife supports my efforts. I'm doing what I've got to do. During the Holocaust, there were 400 Orthodox rabbis who showed up in front of Roosevelt in the White House. Roosevelt didn't meet with them, but he dismissed them, didn't listen to them. And basically during that time, except for pages in the New York Times, like page 44 or 45, people were not told about the Holocaust. It was just terrible. And by the way, they knew about it. Anyone who tells me they did not know about it until 44, I can prove to you that they have. There were people who escaped from Auschwitz, who came out, who let their political people know and were witnesses, and nothing was done. So someone who tells you, the Americans just happened to find these people in Auschwitz, that was the Russians, or they found them in Buchenwald, which was the Americans. No, it didn't just happen then. It happened. They knew about it before. Yeah, it was a great shock. Eisenhower said, you got to film this so that the world will believe it. Seems like all the filming in the world didn't work so good because people are still denying the Holocaust.
And then there's the uncomfortable conversation of legal firms like Sullivan and Cromwell, who then represented Nazi business dealings. There's then the other uncomfortable conversation about IG Fairbairn, the conglomerate that came about in 1925, and then their dealings having set up another company that carried on with their patents, making money in America. This is the uncomfortable conversation of that particular conglomerate just to defend the German pharmaceutical industry. But it was all the links that it still had around the world and also with America. And that may be one of the reasons why, because as you've just indicated, why didn't they bomb the railway lines on the way to Auschwitz, other camps? Why didn't they bomb them?
Well, there's a debate on that. Personally, my father was there. Would he have died in the bombings? Don't know. Would he have wanted the place bombed? Probably yes. They didn't bomb it because they said they needed the ammunition to bomb other places, which were more important. I don't buy that. There are many authors who have written on the subject who agree with me. just follow the money, by the way. It's the same thing that's happening today. The Muslim world is getting a tremendous amount of financial background money from different countries, different Arab countries. And I'm not blaming all Arab countries or all Arabs. I'm just saying they're getting tons of money being sent to them. And by the way, Adolf Hitler originally was sponsored by the industrialists. People don't realize that. And that included the Jewish industrialists, because Adolf Hitler, until the 30s, 32, 3, wasn't as crazy as he eventually became.
And IG Fairbairn, as a conglomerate, then threw their money in behind him as well. This is a classic illustration of that. And it's a history that people don't want to go down, but they need to. And as you've just said that about what your father went through, and of course there was then Auschwitz too, that was built basically by IG Fairbairn to then create so that you had labor to build that from Auschwitz, but you then had labor to help run the factory that was creating.
I believe that my father survived Auschwitz for 4 years. Right. Very few people survived for 4 years. And I finally, I think I put one and one together. He was trained in the meat business. And in Europe, he worked for meat companies. And there was a place in Auschwitz called Canada. Canada was where people survived, such as tailors, meat cutters, anything that helped the Nazi party survive and live in more luxury. So that's why I think he survived. So here's a question. Why did my father, who was in Auschwitz and lost everybody, why in the world did he allow his son to become a rabbi? That was one question I did ask him. And he said to me, well, one night in Auschwitz, he sat down by a tree. He had a dream. His father, who had been murdered, came back to him and said, today you will be free. And that day he was freed. So
did he ever answer your question of why did he then let you become a rabbi? Did he then answer that question?
He tells me what I already know. In the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, there's a section called the Tochacha. The Tochacha is the warning section. And it tells you exactly what will happen if to the Jewish people if they do not do what's right in God's eyes. All I can tell you is I'm not a fan of believing that God was behind this. I think man was behind this. I blame the Germans. I don't blame God. But in the Tochacha, and it's there, black and white, people will be raped, people will be killed, people will be running, people will be burned. It's all there. Same thing happening today. It's interesting that Hamas didn't allow the viewing of the film in France because Hamas didn't give France didn't allow it because Hamas didn't give the permission to show the film. Is that crazy or not? That's insane.
That's in the
the
film
Toronto.
festival in Toronto, isn't it, in Canada?
Yes. And now it's going, same thing's happening around the world, but I understand because of pressure, Toronto's now allowing it.
Well, so it should be. I mean, it's just an outrage and indescribable. And then there's been that recent appalling attack in I might have even been in Toronto, actually no, within Canada, where a Jewish man is assaulted with his children around him.
Yes.
This within Canada,
Well, let me tell you, when I was young, I studied judo and karate. I'm a little guy. I'm 5'4", but I knew I was coming to New York to Yeshiva University from Kansas City, Missouri, and a friend of mine, 6'3", black gentleman, black belt personified, worked with me. And I can tell you that that helped me in New York, and I had to use it. I tell people today, teach your children self-defense. Am I telling you to carry a gun? Well, if you can carry a gun legally and get a license, in my opinion, that's a good idea. You need to protect yourself. Do not depend upon anyone else except for yourself, hopefully the police, but the Jewish community has got to get their act together and understand that they have to self-defend themselves.
Bernhard, what about? I think the last time we had a conversation, there were many things that I remember that, but one of the things that I do remember is I think you alluded to that maybe it wasn't until the late 60s, maybe around the 67 war, that that was when your parents began to talk about their experience more within Auschwitz, within the concentration camps. Am I right on that?
You are correct. The survivors were told, do not talk about the camps. Do not talk about the Holocaust. They were told by their own people. Why? Because people would think they're crazy. And who wants to hire a person that was crazy? So, yeah, but after the Israel came about and Israel won the wars, there was a new pride. And because of that pride, survivors started talking about it. Not all of them, but a few of them. I was one of the few to write books on the Holocaust, but I was quite young. And then eventually you had Elie Wiesel and other people of that caliber that wrote books.
So when we look at 67, when was the first time that you went to Israel? When was the first time that you went there?
I was in Israel in 68.
Right. So you were then a year after the Six-Day War.
Yes.
And
I remember volunteering. I went there to study, but I remember volunteering for the Jewish Agency because I was very good in public relations. And I worked in their office part-time.
Wow. How long did you do that for?
I was there for 3 months.
Right. And then have you regularly, there is a reason I'm asking this, is that have you regularly, and of course now you've discovered you've got family out there, you've got your sons out there, or your daughters out there. So have you regularly gone back? Have you made many trips?
We're going again in November.
Right.
And it's become more regular since we found family. And of course, my children are there. But before that, maybe 2 or 3 times. But my wife studied at Hebrew University and went to Israel quite a few times.
So your parents, they came over to America, and they ended up in Kansas, Missouri then?
Yes.
And what
we ended up in Kansas City because the few relatives that we did have left on my father's side were some cousins, and they lived in Kansas City, and he had a half sister in Kansas City, so we ended up there.
Right. And what business did he do? What business did they then
first started out? Don't forget, they couldn't speak English.
Right.
So, we first started out in the fruit and vegetable business. Then my father worked for Wilson Meat Company, and eventually we went into real estate.
So excuse the stupid question, what was the language that you were speaking at that time?
I was speaking Yiddish.
Right.
But unfortunately, I have no one to talk to in Yiddish these days, so it's gotten pretty bad. But that was my first language.
So they end up in real estate, which is an incredible story in itself. But going back to what you were saying about rabbis not standing up in regard to what's going on, and then let's segue into the recent Mamdani, who is now running as the mayoral candidate for the Democrats, or this looks like that's happening, and then he just ends up on the front of the Times. So, Bernhard, again, why has it turned out that a number of Jews in New York, in America, and that part, have actually voted for him. Can you, again, is that about fitting in? Can you explain that one?
Well, the best word I have, stupid.
Right.
They're stupid and they're naive. And one day they're going to find out that just like there were Jews who supported Hitler at the beginning, they're going to find out that if he becomes the mayor of New York, you ain't seen nothing yet.
So so how is that dealt with? People are saying the incredible Jonathan Tobin of JNS has just recently, who I recommend to everyone. I recommend JNS to everyone in regard to just the shows, but the information. He just interviewed a great interview. But one of the points he was making when he was talking about Mamdani, did he say, well, should everyone just disappear off to Florida, or should we just stay here and fight? And someone said, well, it's got to be fought. So what are your thoughts? How is this
becomes the mayor of New York? You're moving to Florida ain't going to help you one bit, because they're going to follow. The only thing that's going to help you if you don't stay in New York is not Florida, is Israel. We can certainly use more Jews in the state of Israel. If he becomes the mayor of New York, that means his philosophy is going to go around the world, and you're seeing it already. He plays to the young people. He's promising everything and anything for nothing. That's the same story that Adolf Hitler, by the way, gave. One of the questions that should be asked is, why did the German people follow Adolf Hitler? I mean, the man's a nutcase, right? So my answer is, and some people are not going to like this, he became a nutcase later. At the beginning, he had a lot of problems. We know that. He blamed the Jews for the murder of his mother, which wasn't true. He blamed the doctor. He was blaming the Jews for other things already in Mein Kampf. But they came up with an interesting plan. They would give things away for nothing. They would create radio. Everyone in Germany had a radio. Everyone in Germany had a Volkswagen. Everyone in Germany now, you had basic highways. If you went on a journey on a boat, they would make certain you got a tremendous discount, and there would be people on that boat that would preach for the Nazi Party and for Adolf Hitler. So they were very smart in what they did. Later on, Adolf Hitler ends up with all sorts of diseases. He's taking uppers and downers. He has his own doctor basically destroying him. At the end, you look at pictures, he's shaking. He's 50 some odd years. He looks like he's 80 years. So there are different Hitlers when we talk about Adolf Hitler. He was a maniac. He was terrible. But, Stalin was the same way. And the only reason we don't do a major job on Stalin is because he was an ally. But as far as killing people, he did the same thing.
Well, absolutely. And the gulags, what happened in Ukraine, this whole thing of turning around and saying, well, everything's fine in Moscow. We've got food in Moscow at that time. What about the rest of Russia and the starvation? And making sure that grain deliveries are then given to Moscow to create this facade. So taking all of those and all of that analogy, and I hear you very loudly. Why is there a disconnect between Jews having those thoughts in New York? Is there there's a disconnect between them and then looking at Israel? They don't. Do they value that? Do they see that at all, or are they just they're not happy with the policies that are going on out there? How do they, or the other thing, how do they interpret the 7th of October and what happened in 2023?
7th of October was a major genocide. I just did a show with someone who I had a whole discussion with, a fight, shall we say. The person was calling the Holocaust a genocide. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Holocaust is a specific word designated only for the Holocaust. and genocide was written by Lumpkin. He created it later on. Israel's concerned about losing their sons, their daughters. Israel is concerned about the hostages. Israel is concerned that they don't want to go generation after generation losing their children and their grandchildren. Israel will fight till the last soldier, but they're hurting. They're hurting. Wherever I went in Israel, you could see on people's faces. My wife and I went to the border of Gaza. We saw where all the cars were burned up. We saw where the attack actually happened. My cousin lives not far from there. You asked me, how did I be so brave as to go there? Well, I'm not the only one so brave. Other people have gone there. The main thing was to show the world, I as a rabbi am willing to show you firsthand what happened. I want you to fight. The problem is I'm a little guy. I don't have money behind me. I don't have power behind me. I'm retired, and I'm going to be 77. I'm worried. I'm not giving myself any credit except for God put me on this earth to do what I'm doing. I just wrote a book called Gilgal, Resurrection of the Holocaust, or Resurrection in the Holocaust. And it talks about, I believe I'm a Gilgal. Somehow or another, I was part of the Holocaust. There are new papers that have been written since I wrote my original one on DNA and on mapping, which basically says that what I'm saying is correct, that parts of you can be from another time. And by the way, many of us Holocaust children have PTSD. Just the other day, there was an article in the Israel papers talking about soldiers who have PTSD and that their children will have it. I said the same thing in 1974.
Wow. So Bernhard, going back to what I was just saying, why is there this disconnect? These Jews in New York have voted, who were then socialists, voting for Mamdani. What is their reflection on the 7th of October? Why have they voted that way, where they see that what Israel has been through over the last 2 years?
I can tell you that the Orthodox in mass in New York speak out against him. I can tell you that in Israel, Orthodox conservative reform, of course, support the state of Israel, but it's a different flavor. Whether the Hasidim go to war, don't go to war, they believe that by learning Torah, God will help the state of Israel. Same thing in New York. The rabbis tell the Orthodox kids, learn Torah. If you learn Torah, you will help God save Israel. It's a different group of people with a different mentality.
What do you feel about that? Is that a mentality that, I'm saying this respectfully, I'm not Jewish, but a passionate supporter of Israel and the Jewish nation. But do you then feel that about challenging that mindset? Is that something that is important to do or not?
I've been challenging it since he announced his candidacy. I'm all over the internet.
Right. But what I mean is, within, you say that, certain Hasidic Jews are turning around and saying, no, we're here to learn Torah.
But, one of the things I kept pushing was for yeshivas that not only teach Torah, but who have their students go into the army. And I've been preaching that since day one. And let me tell you, I've got 3 girl grandchildren. I've already told my son I want them in the army. No ifs, ands, and buts.
Well, you then have to do national service. Then you are in the reserves and people of an age where we'd say we're still young, but 50 plus, they are still doing
Right.
doing reserve duty.
My wife has a niece that's going in this year.
Right.
My grandson has been studying in the yeshiva in Israel for 3 years. He just came back. My oldest granddaughter is going to yeshiva now. It's a different mentality.
Well, the whole thing of New York politics has been rather interesting for a bit of a long period of time, but even recently, of course, Cuomo, and then we've had De Blasio, that other total communist, which is an interesting bit of history, and people to actually, they need to go and do the research. But as you said, it's not, you can't leave New York. People have got to stand and fight this. But the other thing is, politically, how much power does the mayor actually have? How much spending power do they have externally, on federally? How much control can be given to them? So Mamdani may come in, but he may not be able to do anything.
I have said the same thing to the people that have been communicating with me in fright. They're afraid. What are we going to do? And I said the same thing. The mayor does not have full power. The mayor has a council. The mayor has different people that are rich that are supporting different angles. So even if he becomes mayor, which I don't want him to be, I wouldn't be running so fast anywhere. But if you want to go to Israel and that's where you want to help out, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if you look, this is what's so shocking, really, but I suppose it's typical socialism. We look at his schooling, being to a private school, etc. It seems though there's one big silver spoon in his mouth, and actually say what sort of real job has he actually done to then contribute to society. I suppose the good news is that the President of the United States is the biggest supporter of Israel presidentially, I think, maybe that there's ever been. So could the President of the United States intervene in this?
Well, he's already said that he would. I don't know if he can, but he has said openly that he would. Another person that irritates me to no end is Senator Sanders. He's a capo.
Yeah.
You know what a capo is? Capo.
No. Could you define that? Sorry, Bernhard. Could you define that for me?
Yeah, capo were those that they were like policemen over the Jewish policemen over the Holocaust people, and turned on them, and he's doing the same thing. But Soros, see, he's the winner of all. Soros is Jewish, and even during the Holocaust, he was busy turning in Jews, and now his son has the same hatred within him, and all that money is helping the Democratic Party.
Well, he has also read most probably Popper's book as well, hence where that name comes of open society, and then using all that money for collectivism to cause chaos around the world. Absolutely. So you're looking at Soros. Then what about Chuck then? What about Chuck Schumer?
Chuck the Palestinian. That's the best I can say. Unbelievable. He's the most powerful Jew in Congress. We want him to be Jewish. We want him to be pro-Israel. We don't want him to be Palestinian.
Well, someone once said the most dangerous spaces in New York is between Chuck Schumer's mouth and a camera. But I'll leave you with that thought. But how you've said a really powerful thing, which is he is a Palestinian. What is going on within that mindset? Does he value his heritage? Does he value the heritage?
I can't speak for him, but the one thing that I do know, follow the money.
Right.
I don't know how much he's getting for his upcoming campaign. I don't know how much has been promised to the Democrats in their campaign. Follow the money.
Well, that's definitely in Sanders' case as well, isn't it?
Yes.
How many houses does he own? One or two very nice cars.
And I also would be very happy when he's doing commercials on TV if he wouldn't be eating hamburgers and cheese, which is not kosher.
Yeah.
If you're so happy about your Judaism, why don't you eat something kosher?
Is this unfair to say that obviously it doesn't mean anything to him?
I think it does, but I think he's just playing games right now. And the game right now is follow the money. They need the money. The Democrats aren't doing too well.
No, well, after the shellacking that they've just had with Kamala, who can't really put two words together or just cackles, but no, you're absolutely right. They are having to really look inward at themselves. But Bernhard, let's just focus on Israel in the last sort of 5 minutes.
Sure.
You alluded to, you made a comment in regard to the propaganda, and the propaganda about there's the food not going in to Gaza. I don't think you and I could actually sit here. If we were military historians, there would be no other war like this, where you are being attacked, you are then attacking the enemy, but you're also feeding them at the same time. No other time in history has this been like that.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Listen, most of the food is never getting to them. The UN is not doing a good job. Hamas is shooting at their own people. What's going on is beyond terrible. The war has to end. This war has to end. I want to make sure that our Christian friends and our Muslim friends and our Hindu friends and all of our friends realize that Jews are not in the business of killing children and unarmed civilians. We went through this in the Holocaust. This is not our brand of belief. So if you are believing this, I'm telling you right now that we on the other side of these terrible things. And let me tell you what Hamas is doing is they say is new. The rape of children, the rape of women, the burning of bodies. It's nothing new. The Nazis did the same thing. So a lot of the information coming out is false. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, the UN has not been held very pleased with the Gaza.
I'd like to get the UN out of New York.
Absolutely. I would like to see it disbanded. But I was just saying that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that was then set up by the Americans, by the Israelis, to take the power away from Hamas, who was then stealing the food and then selling that food back to the Gazans, the people of Gaza, that they have built all this tunnel system they hide behind to perpetuate this war. So that's how they've been raising money, which is extremely extensive, let alone all the money that countries have piled into Gaza for many, many years. Bernhard, how do you, in the last sort of minute, really, we need longer, and you and I will do this again. How do you think this is going to unfold? What do you think Israel should do? Should they annex Gaza again? Because it is their land. How do you think this is the best way to play this out?
Honestly, that's above my pay weight. I don't know. I volunteered as a chaplain in Israel 2 times during the Lebanon wars. What I saw happening was terrible. I helped in Haifa in the hospital there. I visited Israeli soldiers and the enemy. We were visiting both, and we were making prayers over both. I don't have an answer. I really don't. But I have to rely on the Israeli generals, and I have to rely upon Bibi Netanyahu. Whether you like him or not, I have to believe in what he's doing is correct. And I just hope that this ends soon.
Was that, you were out there in 1982, and when
I was out there a number of times with different missions.
Right. Bernhard, it's been a real honor and a privilege to sit down and have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna draw it to a close, but please stay with me, and then on the other side I will say goodbye. But if it's okay with you, I would like to continue this conversation, because as events are going to unfold in New York. When is the mayoral election for New York?
In November.
Right. So things are really going to start ramping up, to say the least. And also with the fact that sadly but ridiculously, and I don't really want to get into swearing, the fact that the UK Prime Minister is threatening Israel to say, if you don't stop this war, then we'll go for this two-state solution and say we need a Palestinian state. We look at
all these countries now are asking for a Palestinian state.
Absolutely.
So now what they want, it wasn't enough that we were attacked and so many people, thousands of people were murdered. Now they want a host state with a full army to destroy Israel. What does that tell you?
Well, it just to me, with Australia, with our own, the man that is the Prime Minister, I'll just say that, and of the UK, and then Canada and France. There is domestic reasons that you and I can discuss on another day, but also it's a left-wing ideology.
Yes, sir.
That is deep there, and we can go into that as well. But no,
it's a pleasure as always.
No, well, the other thing to say that there are many Christians that stand with Israel.
And I want to thank especially the evangelists on the Christian world who are doing so much to help the Jews.
Absolutely. Bernhard, thank you. Stay there and I'll say goodbye to you on the other side, but it's just been a fantastic conversation. So thank you, my friend. Thank you.